As you take your first breath this morning, a startling realization settles in. Nothing will ever be the same. The air feels heavier, as if the world itself is pressing down on your chest, urging you to notice something you've always ignored. You lie there, cocooned in the familiar warmth of your bed, the soft hum of your environment lulling you into a sense of safety. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet unease stirs. It's as if the walls themselves are whispering secrets you've never wanted to hear. You reach for your phone, the device that has become an extension of your hand, and scroll through a feed of curated comfort, smiling faces, filtered sunsets, the endless parade of small pleasures. Notifications ping, each one a tiny hit of dopamine, a gentle reminder that you are connected, that you belong, that everything is as it should be. But today, the glow of the screen feels different. The images seem hollow, the words echo in a void. You sense for the first time the invisible cost of this comfort, the price you've been paying without ever seeing the bill. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every choice you've made, every path you've taken, has been guided not by your deepest desires, but by an unconscious craving for ease. Picture yourself opening your eyes to a world where every inconvenience has been smoothed away, every sharp edge padded, every discomfort anesthetized. At first, it seems like paradise, but as you look closer, you notice the cracks in the facade. The laughter is a little too forced, the smiles a little too wide, the silence between words a little too long. You find yourself standing at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once. Comfort, the thing you've been taught to seek above all else, may be the very thing that is quietly suffocating you. Suddenly, you're faced with a moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew. Is it possible that the pursuit of comfort, so innocent, so natural, has become a trap? Could it be that the very thing you cling to for safety is the same thing that is eroding your spirit, your creativity, your will to live fully? As you sit up, the room feels colder, the light harsher. You notice the way your body aches from too much softness, the way your mind feels sluggish from too much stimulation. You remember a time when you were younger, when discomfort was simply a part of life. Scraped knees, awkward silences, the sting of failure. Back then, you didn't have the luxury of constant escape. You faced the world head-on, raw and unprotected. Now, every inconvenience is met with a solution, every pain with a pill, every boredom with a screen. But what if this relentless pursuit of comfort is not a blessing, but a curse? What if, in insulating yourself from pain, you have also numbed yourself to joy? What if, in seeking safety, you have lost your sense of adventure? What if, in avoiding discomfort, you have become a stranger to yourself? You begin to see the paradox. The more you chase comfort, the more elusive it becomes. The softer your life, the harder it is to feel alive. The more you insulate yourself from the world, the more vulnerable you become to its smallest shocks. The more you try to control your environment, the more out of control you feel inside. Why is it that the moments you remember most vividly are the ones that hurt? The heartbreaks, the failures, the risks that didn't pay off. Why do the stories that move you always involve struggle, sacrifice, and pain? Why do you admire those who have suffered and overcome, while secretly fearing that you have never truly been tested? You wonder, what is the hidden cost of comfort? What have you traded away in exchange for this fragile sense of security? Is it your resilience? Your courage? Your capacity for wonder? Is it your ability to connect deeply with others, to feel empathy, to experience awe? Or is it something even more fundamental? Your very sense of meaning, your reason for being? As you move through your morning routine, you notice the ways in which comfort has shaped your life. The temperature is always just right, the food always within reach, the entertainment always a click away. You rarely have to wait, rarely have to struggle, rarely have to confront the rawness of existence. Every inconvenience is met with a solution, every discomfort with a distraction. But beneath the surface, a quiet desperation grows. You sense it in the restless scrolling, the endless consumption, the gnawing feeling that something is missing. You see it in the faces of those around you. Eyes glazed over, smiles that don't reach the soul, conversations that never go beyond the surface. You feel it in the way your own dreams have faded. replaced by a vague longing for something you can't quite name. You begin to ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped running from discomfort? What if you allowed yourself to feel the full weight of your existence, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty? What if you embraced the messiness of life, the unpredictability, the risk? Would you crumble, or would you discover a strength you never knew you had? You recall the words of ancient philosophers, the wisdom of those who came before you. They spoke of the dangers of excess, the perils of luxury, the importance of struggle. They warned that a life without challenge is a life without growth, that comfort breeds complacency, that true happiness is found not in ease, but in overcoming adversity. Yet, in the modern world, these warnings have been drowned out by the siren song of convenience. You are told again and again that you deserve to be comfortable, that you should avoid pain at all costs, that happiness is found in the absence of discomfort. But deep down, you know this isn't true. You know that the moments that have shaped you, the moments that have given your life meaning, were never the easy ones. You find yourself haunted by a question. What if the very thing you seek is the thing that is holding you back? What if comfort is not the solution, but the problem? What if in your quest to avoid suffering you have created a new kind of suffering? One that is harder to name, harder to escape, harder to heal. As you step outside, the world feels different. The air is sharper, the sounds more vivid. You notice the way the wind bites at your skin, the way the sun blinds your eyes, the way your heart races at the thought of facing the unknown. For a moment, you feel alive in a way you haven't felt in years. You realize that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway to something deeper, something truer, something real. But the pull of comfort is strong. It whispers to you, promising safety, promising peace. It tells you that you don't have to change, that you don't have to risk, that you can stay right where you are. It lulls you back into complacency, back into numbness, back into the soft prison you have built for yourself. You stand at a crossroads, torn between the seductive ease of comfort and the terrifying freedom of discomfort. You know that the choice you make will define the rest of your life. Will you continue to hide from the world, to shield yourself from pain, to settle for a life of quiet desperation? Or will you step into the unknown, embrace the struggle, and discover what you are truly capable of? The question hangs in the air, heavy and unresolved. It is a question that demands an answer, a question that will not let you rest. What is the hidden cost of comfort? What are you willing to sacrifice for the illusion of safety? And perhaps most importantly, what might you gain if you let it go? As you walk through your day, the question follows you like a shadow. It lingers in the spaces between your thoughts, in the pauses between your words, in the silence of your heart. It is a question that cannot be ignored, a question that will shape the course of your life. You begin to see the world with new eyes. You notice the ways in which comfort has crept into every corner of your existence, the ways in which it has shaped your choices, your relationships, your dreams. You see the subtle ways in which it has dulled your senses, numbed your emotions, stifled your creativity. You see the ways in which it has made you smaller, weaker, less alive. And yet, you also sense the possibility of something more. You sense the potential for growth, for transformation, for awakening. You sense that beneath the surface of your comfortable life, there is a wellspring of strength, of courage, of passion waiting to be unleashed. But to access it, you must be willing to pay the price. You must be willing to face the discomfort, to embrace the struggle, to let go of the illusion of safety. You must be willing to risk everything for the chance to live fully, to love deeply, to create something beautiful out of the raw materials of your existence. The choice is yours. The question is yours. The journey is yours. And as you take your first step into the unknown, you realize that nothing will ever be the same. But what is this hidden force that keeps you tethered to comfort, even as it drains the life from your veins? What ancient fear, what deep-seated longing, what invisible hand shapes your every move? The answer lies deeper still, buried beneath layers of habit, culture, and belief. To find it, you must be willing to dig, to question, to confront the darkest corners of your soul. Are you ready to see what lies beneath the surface? Are you prepared to face the truth about comfort and about yourself? The journey has only just begun. You sense the question gnawing at the edges of your consciousness, refusing to be silenced by routine or distraction. What is this hidden force that keeps you tethered to comfort, even as it quietly erodes your vitality? Why do you and so many others cling to the familiar, the easy, the safe, despite the growing suspicion that something essential is being lost? You begin to search for answers, not in the shallow waters of self-help platitudes, but in the deeper currents of psychology and philosophy. You recall the words of Carl Jung, who warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Is comfort then a shield against the terrifying unknown within? Is it a fortress built to keep out the chaos of the world, but also to keep you from discovering the wild, untamed parts of yourself? You remember Nietzsche's challenge. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Yet in a world obsessed with comfort, the how has become the focus, and the why has faded into the background. You wonder if the pursuit of comfort is at its core an attempt to escape the burden of meaning. If you never have to struggle, never have to suffer, then you never have to confront the question of why you exist at all. You think of Schopenhauer, who saw life as a ceaseless striving, a restless will that can never be satisfied. He believed that suffering was the default state of existence, and that comfort was merely a temporary reprieve, a brief pause in the endless cycle of desire and disappointment. Is it possible that your obsession with comfort is simply a way to numb yourself to the fundamental pain of being alive? You recall Aldous Huxley's vision of a future where people are pacified by pleasure, lulled into submission by endless distractions. In Brave New World, comfort is weaponized, used to keep the population docile and compliant. You see echoes of this in your own life, the way you reach for your phone when you feel anxious, the way you binge-watch shows to avoid uncomfortable thoughts, the way you fill every silence with noise. You remember Sartre's assertion that man is condemned to be free, that the weight of existence is the burden of choice. Comfort, you realize, is a way to abdicate that responsibility. If you never step outside your comfort zone, you never have to make difficult decisions, never have to risk failure, never have to face the consequences of your freedom. You think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the concentration camps and emerged with a profound insight that meaning is found not in comfort, but in the willingness to suffer for something greater than oneself. When we are no longer able to change a situation, he wrote, we are challenged to change ourselves. You wonder if in your quest for comfort, you have lost the ability to change, to grow, to become more than you are. You begin to see how this hidden force operates, not as a conscious choice, but as a subtle, pervasive influence that shapes your thoughts, your emotions, your very sense of self. It is the voice that whispers, "Take the easy way out." It is the hand that guides you toward the path of least resistance. It is the invisible current that pulls you away from challenge, from risk, from the possibility of failure. You notice how comfort has become a kind of addiction, a habit that is reinforced by every small pleasure, every minor convenience. The brain, you learn, is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of reward, floods your system every time you indulge in comfort, whether it's a sugary snack, a social media like, or a warm bath at the end of a long day. Over time, you become conditioned to seek out these small hits of pleasure, to avoid anything that might cause discomfort. But the more you indulge, the less satisfying it becomes. The pleasures that once brought you joy now feel empty, hollow, routine. You need more and more to achieve the same effect, and yet you feel less and less alive. You realize that comfort, like any addiction, is a trap, a cycle of craving and disappointment that leaves you feeling numb and disconnected. You see how this addiction to comfort shapes your identity. You begin to define yourself by what you avoid, rather than by what you pursue. You become the person who never takes risks, who never speaks up, who never dares to dream. You shrink your world to fit the boundaries of your comfort zone, and in doing so, you shrink yourself. You notice how comfort affects your relationships. You avoid difficult conversations, preferring the illusion of harmony to the reality of conflict. You settle for shallow connections, afraid to reveal your true self, afraid to be vulnerable. You choose partners who make you feel safe, rather than those who challenge you to grow. You surround yourself with people who reinforce your comfort, who never question your choices, who never push you to be more. You see how comfort shapes your emotions. You become afraid of pain, of sadness, of anger. You learn to suppress your feelings, to distract yourself from anything that might cause discomfort. You become emotionally numb, unable to feel joy or sorrow with any real intensity. You lose touch with your own heart, with the raw, messy, beautiful reality of being human. You notice how comfort shapes your behavior. You avoid challenges, preferring the safety of routine. You procrastinate on important tasks, choosing the immediate pleasure of distraction over the long-term satisfaction of achievement. You give up easily, unwilling to endure the discomfort of failure. You settle for mediocrity, afraid to strive for greatness. You see how comfort shapes your dreams. You stop imagining what could be, content to accept what is. You lower your standards, your expectations, your ambitions. You convince yourself that you are happy, that you have everything you need, that you don't want anything more. But deep down, you know this isn't true. You know that you are capable of more, that you were meant for more, that you are wasting your potential. You begin to understand that comfort is not just a personal issue, but a societal one. You see how the culture around you reinforces the pursuit of comfort at every turn. Advertisements promise instant gratification. Products are designed for maximum convenience. Technology eliminates every inconvenience. You are told that you deserve to be comfortable, that you should never have to suffer, that happiness is found in the absence of discomfort. But you also see the consequences of this cultural obsession. You see a society that is increasingly anxious, depressed, and disconnected. You see people who are afraid to take risks, afraid to fail, afraid to be themselves. You see a world that is losing its sense of purpose, its sense of meaning, its sense of adventure. You realize that the hidden problem is not comfort itself, but the way it has become the default setting of your life. Comfort is not inherently bad. It is a natural and necessary part of being human. But when it becomes the primary goal, the organizing principle of your existence, it becomes a prison. You begin to see the outlines of this prison. The walls built from fear, the bars forged from habit, the locks sealed by culture. You see how you have been complicit in your own captivity, how you have chosen comfort over growth, safety over freedom, numbness over feeling. You feel the weight of this realization, the heaviness of the truth. You see how comfort has shaped your life in ways you never imagined, how it has limited your potential, stifled your creativity, dulled your spirit. You feel a sense of grief for the person you might have been, the life you might have lived if only you had been willing to embrace discomfort. But you also feel a glimmer of hope, a sense that it is not too late to change, to break free, to reclaim your life. You realize that the first step is to see the problem clearly, to name it, to understand its roots. Only then can you begin to dismantle the prison of comfort, brick by brick, habit by habit, belief by belief. You ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What is the worst that could happen if I step outside my comfort zone? What might I gain if I am willing to risk discomfort, to embrace uncertainty, to face my fears head-on? You realize that the answer lies not in avoiding pain, but in finding meaning in it. That true happiness is not the absence of discomfort, but the presence of purpose. That the path to fulfillment is not paved with ease, but with challenge, struggle, and growth. You begin to see that the hidden cost of comfort is not just personal, but collective. That a society obsessed with comfort is a society that is losing its soul. That the only way to reclaim your life, your purpose, your humanity, is to be willing to pay the price of discomfort. You feel the tension building, the sense that something must change. You know that the journey will not be easy, that it will require courage, resilience, and a willingness to face the unknown. But you also know that the alternative, a life of quiet desperation, of numbness, of regret, is no longer acceptable. You stand at the threshold of a new understanding, a new way of being. The question is no longer whether you will choose comfort or discomfort, but whether you will choose to live fully, to embrace the messiness of existence, to become the person you were meant to be. The hidden problem has been revealed. The roots have been exposed. The time for action is drawing near. But what are the consequences of remaining in this prison? What happens when an entire society chooses comfort over growth, Safety over freedom? Numbness over feeling? The answer is more unsettling than you can imagine. And so the journey continues, deeper into the heart of the unseen consequences that shape your world, your mind, your very soul. You move through your day, the world around you humming with the quiet machinery of comfort. Everything is designed to be easy, frictionless, predictable. The coffee is brewed at the touch of a button. The car glides silently down smooth roads. The thermostat keeps the air at a perfect temperature. You barely notice the effortlessness anymore. It has become the water in which you swim, invisible and omnipresent. But now, with new eyes, you begin to see the cracks beneath the surface. You sense the subtle ways in which this comfort shapes not just your habits, but your very reality. The consequences are not loud or dramatic. They are insidious, creeping in like a slow fog, dulling your senses, narrowing your world. You notice it first in your own mind. The urge to check your phone when a moment of boredom arises, the reflex to reach for a snack at the first pang of hunger, the compulsion to fill every silence with noise. You realize that you have lost the ability to simply be, to sit with discomfort, to let your thoughts wander, to face the emptiness that sometimes wells up inside. Your attention, once sharp and curious, has become fragmented, scattered across 1,000 distractions. You remember reading about the brain's plasticity, how it rewires itself in response to repeated behaviors. You wonder what happens when the dominant behavior is avoidance, when every impulse to escape discomfort is rewarded, reinforced, repeated. You suspect that your neural pathways have been carved into ruts of passivity, that your capacity for focus, for patience, for resilience has atrophied from disuse. You see it in your emotions too. The highs are less high, the lows less low. Everything is muted, as if you are living behind a pane of glass. You recall the words of neuroscientists who warn that constant stimulation blunts the brain's reward system, making it harder to feel joy, harder to feel anything at all. You wonder if this is why you sometimes feel numb, disconnected, adrift. You think of the concept of learned helplessness, the phenomenon discovered by psychologist Martin Seligman, in which animals and people who are repeatedly exposed to discomfort they cannot escape eventually stop trying to change their circumstances. You wonder if comfort, paradoxically, has taught you to be helpless, if by removing every obstacle, every challenge, every source of friction, you have lost the belief that you can overcome adversity. You wonder if you have become a passive observer of your own life, waiting for someone or something to make things better. You see the consequences in your relationships. Conversations skim the surface, never venturing into the depths where real connection is forged. Disagreements are avoided, feelings are suppressed. Vulnerability is seen as a risk rather than a gift. You realize that true intimacy requires discomfort, the willingness to be seen, to be challenged, to be changed by another. Without it, relationships become transactional, shallow, easily broken. You notice how comfort has shaped your sense of self. You have become a curator of your own image, presenting only the parts that are polished, acceptable, safe. You hide your flaws, your fears, your failures, afraid that they will make you unlovable. You realize that you have lost touch with your authentic self, that you have become a stranger to your own depths. You see the consequences in your work, your creativity, your ambitions. You avoid projects that might fail, ideas that might be rejected, paths that might be difficult. You settle for what is easy, what is expected, what is safe. You realize that you have stopped growing, stopped risking, stopped dreaming. You wonder what you might have created, who you might have become, if you had been willing to endure discomfort. You begin to see how these personal consequences ripple outward, shaping the world around you. You notice how society itself has become addicted to comfort. Every inconvenience is met with outrage, every challenge with complaint, every discomfort with a demand for relief. You see a culture that values ease over effort, pleasure over purpose, safety over freedom. You think of the rise in anxiety, depression, and loneliness, epidemics of the modern age. You wonder if these are not just individual pathologies, but symptoms of a deeper malaise. You recall studies showing that people who face adversity, who struggle and overcome, are more resilient, more connected, more fulfilled. You wonder if, in removing all sources of discomfort, society has also removed the very conditions that make life meaningful. You see how comfort has shaped politics, economics, even morality. Leaders promise security, stability, the elimination of risk. Policies are designed to protect, to insulate, to shield citizens from the unpredictability of life. You notice how this breeds complacency, entitlement, a sense of victimhood. You see how it stifles innovation, discourages dissent, punishes those who dare to challenge the status quo. You think of the concept of anti-fragility, coined by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the idea that some things grow stronger when exposed to stress, disorder, and challenge. You wonder if by insulating yourself and your society from discomfort, you have become fragile, unable to cope with adversity, unable to adapt to change, unable to thrive in the face of uncertainty. You see the consequences in the environment, too. The demand for comfort drives consumption, waste, the exploitation of resources. You realize that the pursuit of ease has a cost, not just for individuals, but for the planet itself. You wonder what future generations will inherit, a world stripped of its wildness, its beauty, its resilience. You notice how comfort has shaped your relationship with time. Every moment is filled, scheduled, optimized for maximum efficiency. You have lost the ability to wait, to be patient, to let things unfold in their own time. You realize that some of the most important things in life, love, wisdom, creativity, cannot be rushed, cannot be forced, cannot be made comfortable. You see how comfort has shaped your relationship with death. You avoid thinking about your own mortality. Distract yourself from the reality of impermanence. You realize that in shielding yourself from the discomfort of death, you have also shielded yourself from the urgency of life. You wonder what it would be like to live with the awareness that every moment is precious, that every breath is a gift. You begin to feel the urgency of escaping this unseen trap. You sense that something vital is at stake, not just your happiness, but your very humanity. You realize that the cost of comfort is not just personal, but existential, that in seeking to avoid pain, you have also avoided growth, connection, meaning, and ultimately life itself. You ask yourself, what would it mean to reclaim discomfort? To see it not as an enemy, but as a teacher, a guide, a doorway to something deeper. What would it mean to embrace the full spectrum of experience, the joy and the sorrow, the pleasure and the pain, the certainty and the doubt? You recall the words of Rainer Maria Rilke, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, just keep going. No feeling is final." You wonder if the path to wholeness lies not in the pursuit of comfort, but in the willingness to feel everything, to experience life in all its rawness and complexity. You sense that a breakthrough is possible, a way of being that transcends the false dichotomy of comfort and discomfort, pleasure and pain. You feel the stirrings of a new perspective, a new way of living, a new kind of freedom. But you also feel the resistance, the fear, the inertia that keeps you trapped in old patterns. You know that breaking free will require more than insight. It will require courage, action, a willingness to risk everything for the sake of something greater. You stand at the threshold of transformation, the edge of a new reality. The unseen consequences of comfort have been revealed, their weight pressing down on you, demanding a response. Will you turn away, retreat into the familiar, the safe, the easy, or will you step forward into the unknown, into the discomfort, into the possibility of becoming more than you are? The choice is yours, the consequences are real. The time is now. But how do you break free from a trap you cannot see? From habits that are woven into the fabric of your life, from beliefs that have shaped your very identity? What does it mean to rebel against comfort, to reclaim your agency, to build a new way of being? The answer lies just beyond the horizon, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek it. Are you ready to take the next step? Are you ready to rebel? You stand at the edge of your old life, the weight of unseen consequences pressing against your chest. The world you once trusted now feels like a carefully constructed illusion, a gilded cage built from your own longing for comfort. The air is thick with the residue of old habits, the echoes of choices made in fear. Yet somewhere deep within, a spark flickers, a restless urge to rebel, to shatter the invisible chains, to reclaim what you have lost. You realize that rebellion does not begin with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It starts in the quietest moments, in the silent refusal to accept the status quo. It begins when you question the stories you have been told about what it means to be happy, to be safe, to be alive. It begins when you dare to imagine that another way is possible. You remember the words of Jean-Paul Sartre, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." The world may have shaped you, comfort may have dulled you, but the power to choose remains. You are not condemned to repeat the past. You can choose discomfort. You can choose growth. You can choose to become the author of your own story. You begin with small acts of defiance. You let yourself feel hunger instead of immediately reaching for a snack. You sit with boredom, resisting the urge to fill the silence with noise. You allow yourself to be vulnerable in conversation, risking rejection for the chance at real connection. Each act is a tiny revolution, a crack in the armor of comfort. You notice the resistance rising within you, the voice that whispers, "Why bother? It's easier to stay the same." You recognize this voice for what it is, the echo of old fears, the residue of a lifetime spent avoiding pain. You do not silence it. You listen, you acknowledge, and then you move forward anyway. You remember the stories of those who have rebelled before you. You think of Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering. You think of Nelson Mandela, who endured decades of imprisonment without losing his sense of purpose. You think of artists, explorers, revolutionaries, those who have risked everything for the sake of something greater. Their lives are a testament to the power of discomfort, the necessity of struggle, the beauty of becoming. You realize that rebellion is not about rejecting comfort entirely, but about refusing to let it define you. It is about choosing discomfort when it serves your growth, your values, your dreams. It is about embracing the full spectrum of experience, refusing to numb yourself to the pain and the joy alike. You begin to experiment with new ways of being. You seek out challenges, not for the sake of suffering, but for the sake of growth. You try things that scare you. Public speaking, difficult conversations, creative risks. You allow yourself to fail, to be embarrassed, to be imperfect. Each failure is a lesson, each setback a stepping stone. You notice that, over time, your capacity for discomfort grows. What once felt unbearable now feels manageable, even invigorating. You begin to crave challenge, to seek out opportunities for growth. You realize that resilience is not something you are born with, but something you build, one uncomfortable experience at a time. You see the world with new eyes. You notice the ways in which others are trapped by comfort, the ways in which they avoid risk, avoid pain, avoid life. You feel compassion, not judgment. You know how hard it is to break free, how seductive the promise of ease can be. You become a quiet revolutionary, leading by example, inviting others to join you on the path of growth. You begin to question the systems that perpetuate comfort at the expense of meaning. You notice how schools reward conformity, how workplaces punish risk, how media sells the illusion of effortless happiness. You see how these systems shape not just individuals, but entire cultures. Cultures that are safe but stagnant, comfortable but unfulfilled. You wonder what it would look like to build a different kind of world, a world that values growth over ease, meaning over pleasure, freedom over safety. You imagine schools that teach resilience, workplaces that reward creativity, communities that celebrate vulnerability. You imagine a culture that honors the struggle, that sees discomfort not as a problem to be solved but as a gift to be embraced. You realize that rebellion is not just personal, but collective. It is about building new systems, new stories, new ways of being. It is about creating spaces where people can take risks, make mistakes, and grow together. It is about reclaiming the lost art of living fully, loving deeply, and daring greatly. You begin to see the outlines of a new way of life. You wake up each morning with a sense of purpose, a sense of possibility. You are no longer afraid of discomfort. You welcome it as a sign that you are alive, that you are growing, that you are becoming. You find joy in the struggle, meaning in the challenge, beauty in the messiness of existence. You notice that your relationships deepen. You are no longer afraid to be seen, to be known, to be changed by another. You have difficult conversations. You share your fears. You ask for what you need. You discover that true intimacy is built not on comfort, but on the willingness to be uncomfortable together. You find that your work becomes more meaningful. You take risks. You pursue projects that matter. You refuse to settle for mediocrity. You are willing to fail, to learn, to start again. You realize that creativity is born from constraint, that innovation arises from challenge, that greatness is forged in the fires of discomfort. You notice that your sense of self expands. You are no longer defined by what you avoid, but by what you pursue. You become the person who dares, who dreams, who grows. You are no longer a prisoner of your own fears. You are the architect of your own destiny. You realize that the rebellion is never complete, that the pull of comfort will always be there, whispering its seductive promises. But you are no longer its slave. You have learned to dance with discomfort, to use it as a tool, a teacher, a guide. You remember the words of Nietzsche, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." You embrace the chaos, the uncertainty, the discomfort. You know that it is the source of your creativity, your resilience, your joy. You become a beacon for others, a living example of what is possible when you choose growth over ease, meaning over pleasure, freedom over safety. You invite others to join you, to rebel against the tyranny of comfort, to reclaim their lives, their dreams, their humanity. You realize that the ultimate act of rebellion is to live fully, to love deeply, to risk everything for the sake of becoming who you are meant to be. You stand at the threshold of a new reality. The old world of comfort fading behind you, the new world of possibility opening before you. The journey is not easy, but it is worth it. The path is not safe, but it is true. You take a deep breath, feeling the sharpness of the air, the aliveness in your veins. You are ready to step into the unknown, to embrace the discomfort, to become the person you were always meant to be. But as you move forward, a final question arises, a question that has haunted philosophers and seekers for centuries. What is the ultimate truth that lies beyond comfort and discomfort, beyond pleasure and pain, beyond safety and risk? What is the deepest realization, the final revelation, the insight that will change everything? The answer waits for you, just beyond the horizon, shimmering in the light of a new dawn. Are you ready to see it? Are you ready to know the ultimate truth? You stand at the edge of dawn, the world hushed and trembling with possibility. The rebellion has left you changed. Your skin tingles with the memory of risk. Your heart beats with the rhythm of uncertainty. You have tasted the wildness of discomfort, felt the ache and the ecstasy of growth. Yet as the first light spills across the horizon, you sense that something deeper still awaits, a truth so profound it threatens to unravel everything you thought you knew. You close your eyes and listen. The silence is not empty, it is alive, pulsing with questions that have haunted humanity since the beginning. What lies beyond comfort and discomfort? What is the purpose of all this striving, this suffering, this relentless becoming? Is there a meaning that endures when all illusions are stripped away? You remember the words of Viktor Frankl, echoing through the corridors of your mind. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. You realize that the ultimate truth is not found in the world outside, but in the transformation that takes place within. The journey through comfort and discomfort, through pleasure and pain, is not about escaping suffering. It is about discovering who you are in the midst of it. You see now that comfort and discomfort are not enemies, but partners in the dance of existence. Each gives meaning to the other. Each is necessary for the fullness of life. Without discomfort, comfort is empty, a hollow shell. Without comfort, discomfort is unbearable, a descent into chaos. The secret is not to choose one over the other, but to embrace both, to let them shape you, challenge you, awaken you. You realize that the ultimate cost of comfort is not pain, not struggle, not even the loss of potential. The ultimate cost is the loss of presence, the slow fading of your awareness, your aliveness, your connection to the miracle of existence. When you numb yourself to discomfort, you numb yourself to everything. When you hide from pain, you hide from joy. When you seek only safety, you lose the ability to be truly here, truly now. You open your eyes and see the world anew. The light is sharper, the colors more vivid, the air electric with possibility. You notice the way the wind stirs the leaves, the way the sun warms your skin, the way your breath moves in and out of your body. You feel the pulse of life in your veins, the quiet strength that comes from having faced your fears and survived. You understand now that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of being. It is the willingness to meet each moment as it is, without flinching, without turning away. It is the courage to feel everything, to risk everything, to love everything. It is the realization that you are not here to be comfortable. You are here to be alive. You remember the paradoxes that have guided you on this journey. The more you seek comfort, the more elusive it becomes. The more you avoid pain, the more you suffer. The more you try to control life, the more out of control you feel. You see now that the only way to find peace is to surrender, to let go of your need for certainty, for safety, for guarantees. You recall the wisdom of the mystics, the poets, the philosophers who have walked this path before you. Rilke's words return. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. You realize that the ultimate truth is not found in answers, but in the willingness to live the questions. It is not found in certainty, but in the embrace of mystery. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the struggles that have shaped you, for the pain that has awakened you, for the discomfort that has forced you to grow. You see that every moment of suffering was a doorway, every challenge an invitation, every loss a gift. You realize that nothing was wasted, that everything belonged. You look back on your life and see the patterns, the cycles, the seasons of comfort and discomfort. You see how each phase prepared you for the next, how each loss made space for something new, how each ending was also a beginning. You understand now that the journey was never about arriving, but about becoming, about learning to live with open hands, open eyes, open heart. You feel the weight of your own mortality, the knowledge that your time here is limited, precious, irreplaceable. You realize that the ultimate rebellion is to live as if every moment matters, as if every breath is a miracle, as if every encounter is sacred. You see that the only thing you truly possess is this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. You ask yourself, what will you do with this one wild and precious life? Will you retreat into comfort, seeking safety at the expense of meaning? Or will you step into the unknown, embracing the discomfort, the uncertainty, the possibility of becoming more than you ever imagined? You know now that the choice is yours, and yours alone. No one can walk this path for you. No one can tell you what it means to be alive. No one can give you the answers you seek. You must find them for yourself, in the crucible of your own experience, in the fire of your own longing. You feel the world calling to you, inviting you to participate, to create, to love, to risk. You realize that the ultimate truth is not something you possess, but something you live. It is the willingness to show up, to be seen, to be vulnerable. It is the courage to say yes to life, even when it hurts, even when it scares you, even when you have no idea what comes next. You remember the words of Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The question echoes in your mind, a call to action, a summons to greatness. You realize that the answer is not found in comfort, but in the willingness to risk everything for the sake of something beautiful, something true, something real. You look around and see others waking up, others questioning, others rebelling against the tyranny of comfort. You realize that you are not alone, that you are part of a great awakening, a movement of souls who refuse to settle for less than everything. You feel the power of community, the strength that comes from walking this path together. You know that the journey will not be easy, that there will be moments of doubt, of fear, of pain. But you also know that you are capable of more than you ever imagined, that you are stronger than you think, that you are here for a reason. You feel the fire in your belly, the light in your eyes, the song in your heart. You take a deep breath and step forward into the unknown, into the discomfort, into the possibility of becoming fully, gloriously, heartbreakingly alive. And as you walk, you carry the ultimate truth with you, not as a shield, not as a weapon, but as a compass, a guide, a reminder of what matters most. You know now that the hidden cost of comfort is nothing less than your own soul, your own aliveness, your own capacity to love and be loved. You vow to never again trade meaning for ease, purpose for pleasure, freedom for safety. You vow to live with courage, with presence, with gratitude. You vow to let discomfort be your teacher, your ally, your doorway to the sacred. You realize that the final, most powerful realization is this: life is not meant to be comfortable, it is meant to be lived. And as the sun rises, painting the world in gold and fire, you step into the day with open eyes, open hands, open heart, ready to embrace whatever comes, ready to risk everything for the sake of becoming who you are meant to be. Nothing will ever be the same. And that, at last, is the gift.